Xi Jinping has a power monopoly. The Fuhrer in Nazi Germany, Adolf Alois Hitler, had a power monopoly. And those weren't good things. But now this is getting picked up all over the place by major publications and others that are looking into it and saying this is crazy. And we have the Democrats admitting they want paramilitary to take the guns. And there is a scenario to cause a civil war in America and then use that crisis to bring in the UN. Loretta Lynch and her Strong Cities initiative, right before Obama left office 4 years ago, proposed, and we played the audio and video of them at meetings when they have these federal takeover of police departments to, quote, fix corruption, that the UN would do it. And remember, the UN goes into countries all over the world and does this when they're having civil wars. That's why they're building the refugee centers in Mexico and Guatemala and flooding us, just like they're doing it on the borders of Europe with the Islamicists. That's why the UN is bringing people in by the tens of thousands from the Congo during the biggest Ebola outbreak ever. It's all part of the globalists using the third world to assault the first world. The UN and the globalists have already exploited the third world. China has taken over Africa. That was a big article we covered just a few days ago. And now they're moving against the United States. But America woke up in the last few minutes to midnight. And so now the fight is on. In fact, crew, please print me that big article that was linked on Drudge a few days ago about China taking over the continent of Africa. That integrates with this, and I forgot to get into that. So that's all coming up. We have the reporter and the journalist that broke the big story, Tom Pappert, joining us, and so much more. We also have big news on the Vatican with Leo Zagami and more today. I'm Alex Jones, your host. Paul Watson from the UK will also be hosting the 4th hour. It's 2020. Stay with us. We see the Earth now, and it is the mythical year 2020. I remember growing up, being 4 or 5 years old, and my mother cooking in the kitchen. And she said, just think, you'll be 20-something years old in the year 2000. And I thought about 2000 being some distant future place like the Jetsons, and we'd all fly to work on cloud cities on our jetpacks. And then the year 2000 came and went. 2001, the beginning of the new millennium. And just like that, here we are 20 years later in the year 2020, that image of vision, that archetypal symbol. And the world is matching what you'd expect from such an incredible numerical iconography. Big things are happening. Still greater things are going to unfold. And the world has been put into that point of liquefaction where the system has been frozen in the social mores and how culture operates, and it has been artificially put into flux so the social engineers can manipulate society into a form and shape they desire. But during that critical moment where civilization is put into flux, we are now fighting with the technocrats and the post-humanists for control of the wheel that is in direct connection to the rudder. And that's the best analogy I can come up with. I think it's probably best that I just read to you some of the stacks and some of the headlines here that we're going to be going over today. The public has really woken up to the fact that the stage is being set to trigger controlled right-wing opposition clashes with controlled left-wing opposition, Antifa, in areas like Virginia. And that indeed the United Nations is being prepared and being augmented and firing up the forces to be able to carry out that stabilization role if criminal elements of the deep state are indeed able to trigger civil unrest inside the United States, it is so wonderful that everyone is seeing through this and how phony Charlottesville was a few years ago as a beta test of how they were going to try to create these clashes in the future that they hope will trigger and detonate real clashes across the United States. And I've had the University of Georgetown and the deep state publicly sue me and misrepresent what I've said and what I've done about Charlottesville in an attempt to silence us and others to talk about how they're trying to create these clashes. But instead, we're going to focus more on it now and have our people in place coming up on the 20th at the Commonwealth when they announce gun confiscation and registration, which they've already said they're going to do, in an attempt to trigger clashes, which again, Soros and his operatives have been caught doing before. That's why Joe Biden is running his new campaign ad saying we're going to have a new Charlottesville, and Trump is defending the KKK, saying they're very fine people, which he never said, another hoax. That's because they plan to use a new clash as a way to, again, trigger civil unrest across the nation and then bring in the UN that Obama proposed using in U.S. cities where there, quote, have been police abuses. That was proposed by Loretta Lynch. We played the clips here many times. Breitbart.com, Infowars.com wrote about it. Her at meetings telling city leaders across the country, we're going to use the UN over the police boards. And the UN builds the refugee centers on our borders, and the UN runs all these major operations to break up countries. And that's how the globalists are going to try to use these outside forces against the attempt by Trump and the American people to restore our republic, unify our nation, and move forward. Just like Russiagate failed, just like the impeachment is a big joke, I believe this is going to fail because we're on air, because you are active, and because you understand their game plan. Once we understand their game plan, it is game over. So I'm going to spend the entire second hour looking at scenarios that the deep state has been preparing and are intending to implement, not just in Virginia, but in other geographic areas of the U.S., economic crises they're planning, and other tricks. But knowing about their operations is a large part of the battle. And we've done extensive research. This entire stack is government documents, admissions, plans. No one has their finger on the pulse like we do. And I don't say that, again, to toot our horn. I say it to point out that this is the battle plans. And if you know the enemy's plans, and if you're able to get those out to patriots in government, in companies, in private life, and to the independent press, and if we know what we're looking for, we understand the narrative, we don't have to sleepwalk into their takeover. And that's why they're pissed that we just don't follow their brainwashing and their narratives. But the big stories are up on drudgereport.com, Infowars.com. Virginia rep says use military to take the guns. Why is the UN hiring English-speaking disarmament officers in New York? Leaked U.S. Army document outlines plan for re-education camps in America. FM 3-39.40. All of this. Virginia governor wants roadblocks to take the guns. That's meant to cause a civil war. It's just like Texas. The cities have been taken over by people fleeing California. So you go into the cities, it's not Texas anymore, but then outside the cities, it is Texas. And imagine if they just shut the roads down and start confiscating your guns. They know that's going to cause a revolt. That's their plan. This is so huge. So we're going to cover it. The entire second hour, tell everybody tune in, is on this, okay? Beyond critical, beyond critical. Now we come back, I want to look at the race war component that ties into this first. Trump list shows 319 results and promises he kept. Huge surveillance grid news, the latest campaign news, huge news that ties into all of that and the deep state. Obama's National Security Council holdovers finally fired by Trump. So Trump is doing a lot of very exciting things. We're seeing real movement in the new year that if it follows the trajectory I see, we're going to see the deep state in really big trouble in about 60 days. But we will track all of that as well, and the latest in the Middle East as the deep state tries to trigger a new hostage crisis to embarrass Trump and derail his attempts at peace in the Middle East. It's all coming up. Finally, in this segment, we will never have deals as good as we've had at the end of 2019 and the start of this year because we are clearing out of a lot of our inventory, even our best-selling items, to be able to restock. And then once we restock, we're not going to be able to do the 60, 70% off on things because there's no profit there. So the best deals ever are at InfoWarsStore.com. They're only running for 4 more days, and then that's it. Store-wide free shipping, double Patriot points, 50 to 75% off, up to 50% off apparel, and it funds our operations. So I want to thank you all for your support. Plus, these are great items you need. It's the new year, so visit InfoWarsStore.com and get the best deals ever. Stay with us. Again, it is Thursday, January 2nd, 2020. I'm your host, Alex Jones. And in the second hour, I'm going to lay out the Democrats' surprise to try to derail Trump. It's guaranteed. They admit it's their plan. We said 2 years ago it was their plan. We said it was their plan a year ago. We said it 6 months ago. And now Joe Biden is betting his whole campaign on a new Charlottesville, and the Democrats are coming to confiscate the guns in Virginia. And they are so pissed that we see right through them, and they just don't know what to do. The dominoes are falling in our direction. We're winning. And those of us that are on the front lines are going to be punished. That's okay. That's what I signed up for here. But I want the audience to realize you're not an audience. You are literally the reason this is happening. Think about that. InfoWars is the tip of the spear. And we are responsible, with God's help, for all of this. And that means you. Okay, let me do this. Because the news is so overwhelming. The only way I can process this is just tell you what's coming up, and then I'm going to explode into this at the start of the next segment. I got into how we have their game plan. It's confirmed. They're moving forward with it to trigger civil war. We have the documents where they admit that's their plan. It's incredible. And then we've got the fomenting towards that. And after they trigger the clash in Virginia and other areas with their hired actors, with their operatives, and the real useful idiots that show up, they then plan to trigger racial unrest around the country and brand the overthrow of Trump as an uprising by non-whites against whites. And that's why there's more than 15 Netflix shows and HBO shows and just everywhere about white privilege and how whites are inherently evil and bad. With white people teaching everyone this is the case, and Barack Obama, as a producer, financing and producing shows with names like white privilege. Protest after German state broadcaster features children singing about their grandparents being environmentalist pigs and chanting like Nazis that they're going to get them and line them up against the wall with Greta Thunberg in the background. Yes, this is not science fiction. This is 2020. As I mentioned, the racial division. New York Times loves racism and hates white people. Big RT article. Ties into this. It's okay to be white. Trends on Twitter. New York Times begins 2020 with feature story on how white people are bad for existing. Paul Watson covered one where they actually said, when you hike in Scotland, it's very upsetting to see so many able-bodied white people. Even in Scotland, you can't have any white people, plus they're good-looking. And it's a white writer for the BBC who's upset to see able-bodied white men. My God, that's a good-looking white man. What are we going to do? This is the real world, folks. Open up Europe, bring in unlimited people, and then the white people are trying to teach them to hate the whites as a demographic takeover. Unbelievable. That's coming up. Meanwhile, Yale offering bouncy castle, cookies, and coloring activities for students. Adult students encouraged to play children's games. We'll break all of it down. Meanwhile, mayhem in Brussels as cars torched, over 200 arrested. The Islamic fun time. So we're going to break all of that down here today. And we've got more of the big fake news. The Washington Post, protesters storm U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. Turns out they killed people now, but they're being called protesters, kind of like they called Xi Jinping a hero and said, quote, "We hope China can destroy Trump to save America." That was the headline. Talk about collaborators, talk about enemies, and a large part of the American people hate their own country so much they don't want Trump to get them a better trade deal. They don't want to have a better energy prices. They don't want to have a future. Xi's choice: destroy Trump, save him, and weaken America. There's your headline. That's not the Twilight Zone. That's the real world in 2020. Meanwhile, these are the new taxpayer-funded benefits illegal aliens in California get starting today. We'll cover it. Trump on war with Iran. I like peace. Trump says he doesn't want war with Iran. That's coming up. Trump lists 319 results and promises kept in 3 years. He sure did. More honest and got more done than any president I've ever seen since George Washington, quite frankly. Ex-FBI chief Andrew McCabe lied to the FBI over his leak to the media. It's now coming out. Of course, we already knew that. California's woke legislation for 2020. Students can't be suspended. Left declares 2020 year of the resistance to Donald Trump and Boris Johnson and call for their physical overthrow. And who's financing them? George and Alexander Soros. Meanwhile, the Washington Post has written a big article that sounds like Paul Watson or Alex Jones wrote it 18 years ago. How we survived the surveillance apocalypse. It says your toaster's listening to you, that there's hidden cameras and microphones, even in cheap devices. And now the creepy, unexplained drones swarming over everything at night in Colorado. We happen to know actually who's doing that, I'll tell you. Meanwhile, head of robotics company warns of catastrophic consequences if AI is used in conflicts. It's all coming up. And the big news that ties in to evidence Trump's really moving now that the new year's here. Obama National Security Council holdovers finally booted after years of nonstop leaks. We've got that. Julian Castro drops out, a bunch of election news. Remember, he said we need abortions for men. And women can be sperm donors. Again, assaulting reality. That's all coming up. U.S. combat deaths in Afghanistan highest in years. And we'll talk about what was the #1 most downloaded and viewed media event on the open internet in 2019. Well, it was Alex Jones, the Joe Rogan podcast. Big articles about it. And that's why I can't go on any big shows that would get their top ratings, because you're not allowed to have top ratings. You're not allowed to be #1. It's kind of like Ford versus Ferrari, where they tell the Ford driver, it's a true story, they said, you need to slow the car down. You're 3 laps ahead of everybody, and we're going to, just it's the way it works. So, again, we'll be right back. Infowars.com, newswars.com, band.video, where the information too powerful for you to be allowed to see still exists, like a sentinel. Next segment, I'm going to play some clips from the controlled corporate media this weekend, or a few days ago, where they're trying to manage reality, and it's just incredibly transparent and pathetic. But it's important to understand how they operate. So we'll do that next segment. Right now, I wanted to get back into what I began to mention and actually play a video clip of this. Protest after German state broadcaster features children singing about their grandparents being environmental pigs for eating meat. And again, this is all being done because the environmental groups want to take control of energy, meat, everything, to tax and control it. That's all this is a mafia muscling in like a priesthood to control every aspect of life. They don't tell the communist Chinese they can't have coal. They don't tell the communist Chinese they can't have meat. They only teach school children that they're bad and that they're killing the earth, so they have guilt and can be ideologically programmed into this cult. Now, when's the last time in Germany they had children talking about how their parents are bad and need to be watched and need to be lined up against a wall and shot, as Greta said in Italy a few weeks ago, if they don't do what they're told? That was under Adolf Hitler, of course. And then we know Mao used the same blueprint with the high schools and colleges. The Cultural Revolution came out of the schools with the Maoist youth brigade. So in the textbook of authoritarian, red line, red flag, alert, 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 danger, danger, is when the state starts organizing children against their parents. You don't walk from that, you run from that. It's a formulae for being put in re-education camps, which they're now calling for on the news for Trump supporters. Fun camps. People go, well, that's crazy, it'll never happen. They're trying it. You go, why are they trying it? Because it's succeeded other places. Both Facebook and Google have moved into former Stasi bases in Germany, in East Germany, former East Germany. You know, why are they doing that? Why are they hiring former deputy heads 6 years ago? People thought we were making that up when Obama hired Marcus Wolf, before he died, the former head of the Stasi, to advise him on Homeland Security. There was a line item in a congressional funding where Wolf almost got paid $1 million to consult, and people didn't believe it. Oh, there's no way the U.S. government hired the former Stasi. Yes, they did. Make police states hip again. Google offered Stasi HQ for new Berlin office. You can't make this up. So let's go ahead and roll this in Deutsch, and then you'll hear Greta Thunberg, their leader, the Jugendleader, mein Führer, saying that, how dare you, I should not be here, I will put you up against a wall, but you must give your energy sources over, only China can operate, no one else is allowed to. This is military operations against us. Here is German state-run TV in the schools brainwashing the children. My grandparents dying in the chicken coop with a motorcycle. There's thousands of gallons of gas every month. My grandmother is old environmental pig. My grandma say riding a motorcycle's cool, so cool, so cool. She even uses it in the old folks' home as wheelchair. My grandma is an old environmental swine. My grandma uses SUV to go to the doctor. She runs over to grandmas on the mobility scooters. My grandma is an old environmental pig. Every day my grandma fries herself a pork chop. A pork chop. A pork chop. She does it because discount meat costs nearly nothing. My grandma is an old environmental pig. My grandma doesn't fly on planes anymore. She reformed. She reformed. She reformed. Now she takes trips on cruise ships 10 times a year. My grandma isn't an environmental pig. My grandma isn't a pig. She submitted.
I will not let you get away with this.
Now back that up again, and then they take control of the children and have them lip sync. We will not let you get away with this. We will sabotage your economy. We will shut you down. But only the West has to do it, not India, not China.
Let you get away with this.
Where the globalists have full control. So can you guys just go to YouTube and type in Hitler Youth? Let's show some people some footage of Hitler Youth. And then you can just superimpose it over those children. We'll do that in post. You know, we're live right now, but once we post this to Band.video, let's add some Hitler Youth on there. How about some Chinese Maoist youth brigades? There's lots of color footage of that, of them killing their parents. We can even show you the people lining their parents up and shooting them, putting them up against the wall. We will show you how to submit to the Reich and the leadership of the Führer. Ein Volk, ein Reich, ein Führer, and our leader and our spokesperson, Gauleiter, Greta Thunberg. So this is the type of behavior that we are ongoingly treated to. And you look at the so-called anti-fascists, they're the ones wearing black uniforms. They're the ones behaving like that. They're the ones that are doing all this. Meanwhile, that story's up on Infowars.com. I hope you share it. Meanwhile, the New York Times loves racism and hates white people. That's the RT headline, and they actually quote it. And we've got BBC articles right here where it actually says that Yep, go ahead, Blair, go ahead.
Yet, I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
I should not be here.
For more than 30 years, the science has been crystal clear. How dare you continue to look away and come here saying that you're doing enough when the politics and solutions needed are still nowhere in sight? You say you hear us and that you understand the urgency. But no matter how sad and angry I am, I do not want to believe that. Because if you really understood the situation and still kept on failing to act, then you would be evil, and that I refuse to believe.
Every authoritarian regime takes control of the children and brainwashes them against their parents and grandparents. And they even sing about, grandma kills grandma's stupid old pig granny. My granny is a pig. She's a big fat pig. She kill other old people. Ah, old people dying. It's all formulaic. If they can't brainwash those that are already informed, they will take the youth and turn them into weapons against the people. And they will teach you inherently, at the BBC, that don't go hiking in Scotland. You'll see far too many able-bodied white men. Now, I want to spend a few minutes here going over how the propaganda works. And look, we all know mainstream media lies. We know they spin. We know that they belittle the American people. But what you're about to see is so arrogant and so authoritarian by Rachel Maddow, Chris Hayes on MSNBC, that we really need to play it and analyze it. Because every few seconds, he's revealing their game plan, their operations. First, they glorify shadowy traitors in the government who put out fake information as leaks and then never get in trouble and no one gets to face their accuser. And they demonize the president and others for saying Eric Ciaramella. and all the millions of people that have been censored on Twitter and Facebook who've had their posts taken down or been banned for saying his godlike name. That then sets the precedent that if you're Fiona Hill and George Soros's minion, and you're the supposed first person that heard this that doesn't exist, the transcript and all the other witnesses say it's a lie, it doesn't matter because you are infallible above the Pope himself, okay? So then he goes into the arrogance of, oh, and then Trump keeps tweeting from these obscure nobodies. Why some of these Twitter accounts just don't even have any followers. Like, oh, Trump will put out what some housewife says or what some auto mechanic says or what some farmer says or what a black forklift operator says. Because that's a real case. A fellow put out a funny tweet and be a black forklift operator. They got him fired in New York last year. Found out who he was. They tracked him down. Trump thought his tweet made sense. And then, they fired him last time I heard. So how dare you, Trump, tweet what a black forklift operator has to say when it makes sense? How dare you put out what an old school teacher who's an old white lady has to say? How dare you? You're supposed to only do what the New York and the D.C. and the L.A. elites, the ones that tell us, women can have babies. Well, we know that, but these aren't women. These are men that say they're women, and that women can be sperm donors. So he lectures people for 7 minutes. I'm not going to play the whole thing. Just the first few minutes is enough to make you go crazy. But this is illustrative of everything we're talking about. The real Donald Trump. And what's the overall message here? Well, starting last week, dozens of Trump tweets were blocked. They were shadow banned where no one could see them unless you had the actual URL. We reported on it. Gateway Pundit reported on it. The people at first couldn't believe it was happening. No, we're 300 days out from the election. They are now moving against how he communicates because he's not stood up to the racketeering, to the election meddling. And so they're setting the precedent now and saying, oh, he gave out Eric Ciaramello's number, his info, his name, and so he has to have armed guards now. But then he also says, we don't even know who the whistleblower is. That's right, it's just some nebulous person. No, it's Brennan giving the order for somebody to make the report. And then they got to protect that person because they can't ever be up on a stand because it'll come out who ordered them to do it. Because we know who ordered them to do it. Because Trump's using the same surveillance state against them now, and that's why they're so desperate and that's why they're so scared. So let's go to, again, the little man with his glasses, supposed to look real intellectual, talking down his nose at everybody. Here he is.
For months now, basically the moment after we learned about the whistleblower's complaint on the president's dealings with Ukraine, the right-wing media has been obsessed with the identity of the whistleblower. Many right-wing outlets have published the name of a person they claim is a whistleblower. We don't know if it is. And they're not alone. Don Jr. has outed this individual, Senator Rand Paul.
I did pause. Again, let's back it up 10 seconds. We don't know who it is because now we get to be accused by people and we never find out who they are. And then they act like it's illegal to know who your accuser is to set that precedent. This is the new system where the president's phone calls are all transcripts. Those are all public. He doesn't get any privacy as the president. But these magic people, these deep staters that Trump's finally firing all of them today, they get carte blanche. Continue.
We don't know if it is. And they're not alone. Don Jr. has outed this individual, Senator Rand Paul, Congressman Louis Gohmert, all of them have done it. And so perhaps it was only a matter of time before the president did it himself. He did it over the weekend in his favorite venue for this sort of thing, his Twitter feed. The thing is, those tweets have real-world effects. As the Washington Post notes, quote, when threats against the whistleblower spike, often seemingly spurred by presidential tweets, he is driven to and from work by armed security officers. That's a U.S. government official who needs a security detail because the president is directing venom at him. And this all comes amidst a very, very noticeable uptick in the president's Twitter activity.
Oh, let's stop again. Did you catch all those lies? They just say he's getting all these threats and he needs security detail, but he's not the whistleblower, or maybe he is, and it's all because of this thing called the president communicating with the people. This terrible thing that he should stop doing. And so this is a giant attack on free speech of the president all being normalized here by Chris Hayes. Continue.
Some that are brand new with zero followers, pushing forward weird conspiracy theories from the darkest corners of the internet. Behavior that raises serious questions. For instance, how does he even find these accounts to retweet them?
All right, let's stop again. Did you hear that? These weird accounts with almost no followers. Because he sees a funny video, he sees somebody saying something makes sense, he puts it out. He reaches down to the average person and magnifies that, just like we have callers call in with great ideas. We implement it because your ideas are damn original, damn good. We know most inventions come from the grassroots. The best parties are just with average people, not with a bunch of stuck-up elitists. We're commoners. We're Americans. We're proud of it. Alexander de Tocqueville, the French historian, came here and spent a decade after the Revolutionary War. He said Americans were the most amazing people ever because they were about what you stood for and what you did and who you were, just like Martin Luther King talked about later. Martin Luther King Jr. It's about who you really are, not what royal family you came from. And so Trump values what the average people are saying. And they're trying to cut the people off from the president who's trying to represent them. And this arrogant SOB is up there like royalty. Like, can you believe it? Where he gets all this stuff and they shake their heads because it scares the hell out of them because their corporate boards aren't in control of this country. Let's go back to it.
Some that are brand new with zero followers, pushing forward weird conspiracy theories from the darkest corners of the internet. Behavior that raises serious questions. For instance, how does he even find these accounts to retweet them? Joining me now is NBC News reporter Ben Collins, who spends much of his time chasing down bots and conspiracy networks.
Hit pause again. Chasing down bots and conspiracy networks. You're not really a real person. You're a bot and a conspiracy network. And once they say you're part of that conspiracy network, because they're the conspiracy against America, then you can be shut down. They have congressional hearings, and they turn the CIA loose on you. But something happened. Trump's firing all the State Department people that really run all this. He fired a whole bunch of them yesterday and today. And now they're crapping big old bricks. We're going to come back and get into that. This is so huge, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, but listen, this big expert, he finds out, well, somebody else magnified the commoner's tweet, and then Trump put that out. He's like a rocket scientist explaining this to us here. Go back to him.
Conspiracy networks. Ben, let's start on that first question. Sometimes the president will retweet an account, and it has very few followers. Sometimes it's following zero people. In one case recently, in this recent JAG, he retweeted the first tweet of an account. And I thought to myself, how did he get there to find out this person was tweeting and retweet their first account? How does that work?
Yeah, so in this case, he got there from Seb Gorka, but Seb Gorka retweeted this account.
That's enough. That's enough. So, pure elitism. We're going to go to break. I'm going to come back with the rest of the story and why this is so exciting and good news. And just the mindset of these people who are told what to say, and they all repeat the talking points, and to watch a president going off the people's talking points and just common sense enrages them. They're control freaks. We're going to go to break, come back. I'm going to finish up with this, then get into the big enchilada for the rest of the hour. Their plan to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Please don't forget, this is the last 4 days of the biggest sales we're ever going to have. Store-wide free shipping, double Patriot points. It was 75% off. Total year-end clearance. We're now into the new year. We'll have some new great specials and stuff next week, but this is it. The specials at this level, you'll never see them at this level again. Ultra 12, 60% off. BioTrue Selenium, 60% off. All apparel, 50% off. Turbo Force, 60% off. Krill Oil, 60% off. Alpha Power, 60% off. Vasobeat, 60% off. Super Silver Whitening Toothpaste, 50% off for the first time. Superblue Fluoride-Free Toothpaste, 50% off. Brain Force Plus, 60% off. InfoWarsStore.com, and it funds the InfoWar. From the front lines of the information war. Ha ha ha! So you got all these political operatives like Chuck Todd, who worked for the Clintons and Obama, on his national Sunday TV show that supposedly puts out the talking points to everybody. And you just saw MSNBC mad that Trump is tweeting obscure people. How dare him retweet what the peasantry is up to? Well, I thought I'd play this clip from earlier in the week again, or from last weekend. I think I played it on Monday, because it's so illustrative of this ecosystem where it goes from 4chan to Reddit to InfoWars to the Gateway Pundit, which is total bull. Greta Thunberg says we're going to line people up and kill them. The Germans teach kids that their parents and grandparents are pigs that need to die because they don't we write a story about it showing how you're monsters. That's how it works. We cover the horrible stuff you're doing. And then we race to try to get it out before the competition. We don't like get our talking points from, oh, what 4chan say? Oh, what Drudge say? They always ask, like, Alex just said what was going to be in Trump's speech at his inauguration, and he said exactly that. And the New York Times was like, he talked to you this morning? No one had the speech. And I said, I can already figure out. I wrote the speech on the air in the last 20 years. It's like in 1984 when Winston's getting tortured in the Ministry of Truth, and O'Brien walks in. He says, they got you? And he goes, yeah, they got me a long time ago. That's hilarious. I'm sorry. It's just really funny. I haven't figured it out yet. So let's just go to this ridiculousness. It comes from the people, from the grassroots. That's where the real power is. You people don't have any real power in your soul, so you go to D.C. looking for a soul, and all you find is more soullessness. Vampires can't feed off vampires. Here they are.
Matthew, I wanted you to address what I think is an ecosystem problem, at least on the right. I want to put up something that my colleague Ben Collins put here. It's a bit of an ecosystem here. It'll say you'll get something starts on 4chan. There's the subreddit of Trump. InfoWars might pick it up. Then it starts inching into the mainstream. Gateway Pundit might just say, oh, what's this about? Then it gets to Drudge might have a provocative headline link. Rush might say it in his fun little way. Then it does make its way into Fox News. And then, of course, your Facebook feed. How do you create more accountability in the conservative ecosystem for basically dealing with propaganda?
Well, it's hard work. I mean, I think it begins by trying to instruct young conservatives.
Let me act very officious and powerful.
Empirical verification.
They say, all the science is in empirical verification. By the year 2013, all major cities will be underwater. We must, no one wants your guns, but we will confiscate them. Men can have babies. Women can give sperm. The Easter Bunny is real.
Credentialed sources of evidence or information. They don't trust any of it. I
don't trust anything coming out of that dude's mouth, and I'm sure as hell not going to let him get near my kids.
You can go to the supermarket and you see the tabloids and you see the weekly.
All right, get him off the screen. Sorry. This is all about these control freaks wanting to control the narrative because America was asleep, because we didn't have TV 70, 80 years ago, so you snuck up on the farmers, and you got them mesmerized because the first shows were nice family programs and, Father Knows Best and Leave It to Beaver and all that. And the honeymooners. But that's like a worm on a hook. Now we're awake and we're like a bass that's been caught a few times and gotten away. We know a hook and a worm. And you hang it in front of us and go, ugh. You ever seen a bass get mad and look at the hook and knows what it is and go away? The little stupid one comes over and grabs it. We're not taking your bait anymore, you chicken neck, blue blood wannabes. You people have nothing. You have nothing. We have broken with you. You are pathetic maggots. You and your witch whore Hillary will all burn in your own excrement. Yes.
Hatred on the streets of Charlottesville last night. White nationalists carrying torches.
It was a weekend of street battles and stark displays of racism.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
We are in a battle for the soul of the nation. Everything that's made America America is at stake. Limited to 4 years, history will treat this as an aberration. But if there's 8 years of this administration, I think it will forever and fundamentally change the character and the trajectory of this nation.
Everybody knows who Donald Trump is. We have to let them know who we are, what we stand for. We choose hope over fear, truth over lies. We are the United States of America. There's not a single thing we cannot do if we do it together.
So that's the best shot they've got. They had the other 11 candidates, 15 total, if you count those that have dropped out, running around saying we're taking all the guns, white people are inherently evil, world government's wonderful, get rid of the borders, America was never great, will never be great. And then you have the good guy, the good cop in the good cop, bad cop game, Joe Biden, sounding like he's Ronald Reagan speaking against the Soviet Union like it's Trump. And we're unified, and we're together, and we're one nation. When all the people he represents have been trying to split this country up. Because they're globalists. They want to get rid of the nation state. They want to dominate us. They want to have the World Bank and the IMF and the TPP and these unelected globalist boards run our countries. And Obama and Hillary and the neocons are all for that. That's why they detest the idea of the president tweeting out what a 40-year-old florist has to say, or what a 70-year-old retired police officer has to say, or what a black 40-year-old forklift driver in New York has to say. Those are all real people I just listed that were targeted by the media and found out who they were and lost their jobs for Trump retweeting them, punishing them for reaching out to the president and sending the message to anybody that thinks they're going to bring this country back, we're coming for you. Well, guess what? Your bullying has completely and totally turned everyone I know who are Democrats against you. And I want to be clear. I'm not somebody that comes on the air and puts out good news because I want to make it so like Oprah Winfrey and The Secret. You have to have the climate, the energy, the culture, the system, the ingredients to build the new Atlantis. By the way, we have all those ingredients and more. The globalists know that as civilization accelerates, their old paradigms of control are going to be completely obsolete. That's why they're trying to suppress innovation and industry and the next human development and have a breakaway civilization where the future is not evenly distributed. And so I am a collectivist in that I believe people should have an opportunity to have access to the future. And that's the thing about what's about to happen is that there's unlimited potential, and you see that. But instead, we're working more hours than ever, even as humans are made obsolete, because they're building a post-human world. It's the only way the globalists can fully capture control of the species and maintain control in a bifurcated new dark age. Now, how do I know all this, and how did the things we talked about 25 years ago, how is it all coming true now? People are like, you're a prophet. No, I'm not. I've studied political systems. I've studied the current globalists. I know their roots. I read their white papers. I've made films on it. And I'm telling you what they say they're going to do. And that's why it's all coming true, because it was already true. So starting next segment, I'm going to plunge into this, but Biden in all of his campaign ads, the original ones, the ones that came out recently and the newest, tell you with edited videos that Trump supports the KKK. And you go to those events and you look at who leads those white supremacist groups. Of the 5 leaders, 4 of them worked for Obama and Hillary a year before they went out to Charlottesville and organized that. And listen, you know how to typecast people. You know on average what groups look like. And I saw the white supremacist marchers, the original Tiki Torch ones, and it was like a gay statewide drama club. And then you go track the guys down. They're like gay drama club guys. And they're pissed. They all got together and dressed up in their little Nazi outfits from the 1940s and kind of sashayed around and did that. And it's ridiculous. And they're pissed that I exposed them. Hell, the Democrats even put ads out to hire actors where you can rent mobs. You can go to websites and rent a mob of AstroTurf to go do whatever you want. And that's what these people are. Now, some real good old boy types showed up, and a lot of them were press, and we had press there that got called white supremacists for covering it. And that's who Trump was talking about, saying there were good people on both sides there to cover it and there to see what was going on. Trump said bad groups on both sides, the white supremacist and Antifa, but he said good people there too that got herded together by the police and got hurt, and that's wrong. That's totally true. So Soros financed that and knew exactly what he'd get, and I'll show you all the documents coming up. And Georgetown is suing me to keep this from coming out. Everybody knows Georgetown basically runs the CIA. But the good news is Trump is digging them all out right now. And he just fired a whole ton of them, and I'll tell you about that. It all integrates together. But that's why the New York Times and Netflix and everything else is saying whites are inherently evil, whites are inherently bad. That's to freak white people out and make them racist, trick some minorities into becoming racist, and make us fight with each other. Let's not do it. Let's not be stupid. So that's the reality, ladies and gentlemen. And that's how they operate. And so what do they do when Soros hires crowds to go do that? They isolate one person out of the story, say that I said they did all this, and then that person sues me when I didn't say that. But that's how this operates because they're so scared. Well, all they've gotten is for me to put massive resources on this, and we're going to have so many people in Virginia. We already do. And I'm not going to get into the details of it, but private investigators, accredited, everything, and we're going to expose them. Because the left can't help it. They're going to try to do it again, and we're going to expose them. And we're going to be here on the air in a year, and in 2 years, and in 5 years, and in 10 years, because the listeners and viewers, and the system can't stand it. So we're going to lay it all out, their plan to blow America into 1,000 pieces, and how we together are going to stop it. But I need you to spread the word about Infowars.com/show. Band.video, the live feeds. That's how we reach new people, and you're doing a great job, so I thank you. But recommit in 2020. Also, it's the end of the year. And we entered 2020, but it's the end of the year sale that's hanging over a few days. I can only run it for about 4 days. Everything is starting to sell out. A lot of stuff that's been sold out will come in the next few weeks. That'll be our new sales. But we'll never be able to have stuff at 50% off on a routine basis. We'll never have 70% off again. So the great products that you love so much, InfoWarsStore.com right now. Double Patriot points, store-wide free shipping. Everything is 50 to 75% off. It's incredible. You can get the tooth whitening toothpaste people love so much for the first time, 50% off. That's for a limited time. Only 4 days left, and your funding funds this operation. We really need the funding to fight the globalists to the next level, so please take action now. Your destiny is in your hands, InfoWarsStore.com. AI didn't come up with that. AI comes from us, and we're just a zygote right now. Have not even begun to realize 1% of our destiny. The control freaks are not going to suppress human destiny or will. It's like a beach ball. Just try to hold it under the water on the bottom of the pool. It only explodes with that much more force once it is freed. I want to thank the globalists for persecuting me, because it always shows me the way. The more the attacks, the more they squeal, the more they tell us not to investigate, the more we do. And now it's completely transparent. So let me just do this ahead of Tom Pappert joining us, who's greatnationalfile.com, broke this on Monday. And now it's a big story linked up on drugsreport.com. It's one of the top trending stories in nationalist and pro-survival, pro-human, common sense media. The entire game plan is to foment conflict between what they call Trump supporters and the loving Antifa angels that Time magazine, you know, for kids, and Vogue for teens tells us is just wonderful people that are helping suppress the speech of Nazis. And anyone that supports America or freedom or justice is a Nazi. And their main funder is a famous Nazi collaborator that said it was the happiest time of his life rounding up Jews. He called it happy making. and said it was exhilarating. It was exhilarating. It was quite fun, actually. The feeling of power. And so they collided these two things together in Charlottesville. It was mainly reporters they're covering, but the police, the state police, kettled the white supremacists, who were mainly leftists, posing as that, in together to have a big collision, have all the leftist media out there to cover it, knowing there'd be an explosion. Doesn't mean they themselves executed it. Knowing they'll create some hysteria, somebody will have a heart attack, somebody will get hit by a car. And then you can blame it on Trump. And now Biden, who's been running for president for a year, has put out a whole bunch of ads, always about Charlottesville and in Virginia, that's 90% geographically conservative, but in the north, it's a suburb of D.C., now controlled by the Democrats. They have all three branches. And they're betting everything on places like Virginia, where they intend to have checkpoints, gun confiscation, and hope that some good old boys start shooting some people after January 20th when they start trying to take the guns. We're going to be covering it there live on the ground, and we're going to be exposing the fact that the last round of leadership of the white supremacists, 4 of the 5, again, are on record, all working for Hillary and Obama's campaigns previously. But they go, oh, we changed our minds now. I've had some of them on the shows. They're like, no, we're white nationalists now. And Georgetown, all these people don't want us talking about this. Well, we are talking about it. So let's go over it right now. Here's the article. Joe Biden releases ad touting Charlottesville very fine people hoax. Virginia representative says use military and law enforcement to take the guns that go into effect January 20th in 18 days in Virginia. And then this big article, why is the UN hiring English-speaking disarmament officers in New York? It says for gun confiscation, internationally and domestically in the ad. Leaked U.S. Army document outlines plan for re-education camps in America. Paul Joseph Watson, 2012. A document from 2010, we broke it. And it says, for America, PSYOPs officers to process American gun owners into re-education camps. And here's the actual document, FM 3-39.40. First, they said this wasn't real for 6 months, then they had to admit it was real. So Obama tried to get our military. People go, why are you bashing the military? That's like if you gave a short order cook, you know, the order to put cyanide in your food, they wouldn't do it. The military is who leaked this to us before it was public. This is what Obama was trying to secretly cook behind the scenes. And again, the Strong Cities Initiative. Guys, print me some articles on Strong Cities, Loretta Lynch. Click web to find it. And there's even videos. I've talked about those. We should play those again with the Attorney General at the time saying we're going to have the UN-run police departments during all that anti-cop, bad shooting stuff they were fomenting, where it turned out almost every shooting was legitimate. I'm not saying there aren't bad cops out there, absolutely, but the media was hyping it to create that crisis. Yeah, there it is, Department of Justice. 2015, it says use the UN in America. Internment and resettlement operations, FM 3-39.40. DOD personnel in America, how to process people into re-education camps. That is the Soviet term. And what does the new UN ad call for? Disarmament and relocation. Specialist English speaking to operate on the East Coast of the United States. These two articles go together. We need to get some articles written up about how this dovetails. So they're quietly through the bureaucracy that the deep state still controls a lot of, trying to gear this up to trigger COG emergency powers that would be put in the 25th Amendment to remove President Trump during a national crisis, a national civil unrest kicked off like the 1960s that threatens open civil war if Trump doesn't stand down. And you've got the Democrats saying Virginia governor plans to use roadblocks and UN troops to seize guns. Dave Hodges interviews Mike Adams. This is from December 20th, 10 days before the National File article broke, calling for the UN operatives to operate in the U.S. for gun confiscation. Go read it for yourself. Cannot make this up. And then you've got the UN running martial law and white slavery all over the planet and their incredible history of that. And then we've got these articles. The New York Times, the BBC, everything saying whites are inherently bad people because of their genetics. That's why they build countries everybody tries to get into. And white people decrying themselves and saying they have white privilege and are inherently bad, trying to legitimize a racial uprising out of which the country will completely collapse. The New York Times loves racism and hates white people. Big article from RT up on Infowars.com. It's okay to be white trends on Twitter. New York Times begins 2020 with feature story on how white people are bad for existing. No kidding. They say there's too many areas that still are mainly white. That's bad, and whites are bad. It's all coming up. Tom Pappard joins us. The authoritarians are making their move, but it's blowing up in their face, so they're only getting more desperate. And then we'll cover this when we return, how it ties in. Obama's National Security Council holdovers finally booted after years of nonstop leaks. That's a lot bigger than just that. Stay with us. You do not want to miss this. Well, the propaganda has all been prepared. Biden is betting his whole campaign on hoping that some extreme right-wing and left-wing Antifa groups collide and crash into each other. And the oldest trick in the book, and what happened to a great extent in Charlottesville, Virginia a few years ago, is a bunch of leftists dressed up like white supremacists, had their own rallies, got real white supremacists, nationalists, but also just traditionalists to show up, and a lot of press. Antifa came in and attacked, funded by Soros and Alexander Soros. I have the documents right here. I'll show them to you. That's on record. It's a fact that they're the main funders. They don't even deny it. And then Trump was called a white supremacist who supposedly endorsed it when he never did. He said there were bad people on the right-wing side, bad people on the left-wing side, but there were a lot of good people on both sides that just came to see what was happening. Well, they leave that came to see what was happening. Like our Millie Weber that got tear-gassed with her husband. She was there to cover it. She got called a white supremacist. That's ridiculous, but that's what they do. Because the corporate media wants to demonize anybody that asks questions. Now, they are heating up for Virginia. We had first heard the Democrats were planning confiscation checkpoints. Now they're saying it. Now they tried to get the National Guard to do it. They said no, obviously. Now the UN, which Loretta Lynch under Obama said they wanted under a Strong Cities initiative, is hiring resettlement, internment, gun confiscators. That's in the ad. Pappard's powerful nationalfile.com. And I knew National File was going to explode because you got a lot of writers from Breitbart, Big League Politics, a lot of other places where he's written. And it's only been around a few months. I love nationalfile.com. I visit drudgereport.com, infowars.com. I follow people's Twitters and stuff, and I've scanned through the emails I get. But I visit National File every few hours because he's got such a great team of investigative journalists that are breaking such big stuff. Now others have written about it. Now Drudge is linked to a story about it today. But I want to go over, after we talk about the general stuff that's currently happening, the obvious big plan in Virginia now this year, starting this month, that they're hoping to foment. And I want to get into the actual resettlement documents, the actual hiring in New York, the actual Army document, FM 3-39.40, because listeners have to understand, when I'm rattling this stuff off, I'm not making any of this up. I know it sounds insane, but this is all stuff Obama put in place that Trump's trying to remove. So we're going to go to Pappard for the rest of the hour here in a moment. But first, I want to mention this little caveat that's good news. Everybody knew that Fiona Hill was the head board member on Soros's main mothership foundation with over 170 foundations under it. Everybody knew that she ran theglobalist.com. But no one would call her out when she got snuck in the White House 2 years ago but us. Another reason they came after us. Remember, she told Congress a month ago she doesn't know what globalism is, doesn't know George Soros. She just is his foundation head, his main commander, his main general. Like Hitler didn't know who Joseph Goebbels was. Or Batman doesn't know who Robin is. Or, I don't know, Daffy Duck doesn't know who Bugs Bunny is. Or, I mean, the level is just staggering gaslighting. I have written letters to Trump that he's gotten. I have given him law firm reviews. I even had well, I'm not going to say. Let's just say I've had major current government officials give messages to the president on what he should do about the censorship and the racketeering. And I just said, fire everybody that was an ever-Trumper and fire everybody in a 5-minute search that ever worked for the left or the neocons at the State Department, because that's who runs the CIA and the whole damn thing. Well, he's doing it. Obama's National Security Council holdovers finally booted after years of nonstop leaks. And it goes through how he's just axing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. Just 40 in just the last week from the National Security Council. And what has Pachenik said on air? You don't need 1,000 people at the National Security Council. You maybe need 50. Can you imagine trying to make decisions on really complex stuff and that cacophony of people leaking and battling and screwing around and putting out disinfo? You need real experts, maybe 6 people in a room like the Joint Chiefs. You don't need 100 or 1,000 like they've got. So hundreds and hundreds are getting fired. Anybody that ever worked for Soros is fired. Fire all of them. And that's why the deep state's really crapping their britches. Trump finally, with 300 days left, 305 days, is starting to do the right thing. So we are now joined by a man who I will name Darth Palpatine. Rise, Darth Palpatine, a powerful Jedi you had become. This is big. What's happening with Trump, but also they're clearly cooking up this witch's brew, betting everything like on the craps table on one number. On Charlottesville, on the Commonwealth, on martial law, hoping we take the bait. We don't want any violence. If they try to come take guns, only in Virginia, I'm saying, I would let them. Only because it'll show the guns being taken and it'll politically kill them. If we start shooting back or let them trick us into it, they can start a civil war. Pappert, what do you think?
Well, that's exactly right. According to the ad, these people only move in after a conflict. So obviously, we've seen all throughout the United States, they are desperately trying to gin up a conflict. They're desperately trying to trick the right, some lunatic who happens to be a registered Republican, into doing something stupid. Obviously, you have massive, just disgusting mobs of leftists out on the streets, as we saw in Charlottesville. And it's worth noting that one of the key people at Charlottesville promised that they would return to the city, that they would make it a staging ground for all of their activism. Meanwhile, they're trying to take the guns in the entire state of Virginia. You have the police saying that they will not let it happen. This, Alex, seems to be a perfect painting for conflict happening in the United States that would allow the UN, which of course is hiring. They're hiring. If you have experience in paramilitary warfare or in political analysis, then you can get a job at the UN. Alex, the only thing that gives me any little bit of hope regarding this story in front of us is the fact that the UN seems to be mired in their own progressive politics, because they want to have 50-50 male and female recruits. They encourage women to apply, and it says one of their key values is diversity. So that is a little bit of hope that these people are hopefully incompetent.
Well, that's right. But again, you only had one woman who it turned out had a heart attack, very sad, in Charlottesville. That turned into a mass murder that white supremacists carried out, and Trump was behind it. If we get real conflict in Virginia, they're going to activate their Antifa squads, their terrorists, and really try to get the country burning down to drive Trump from power. That's their plan. I don't think it's going to go over well, but the White House, the FBI, the American people, all of us have to be watchful, and we cannot let them get away with this, because they admit this is what they're going to try to pull.
Well, that's exactly what's going on. I mean, again, in Virginia, so for some reason, they seem to have picked Virginia, and it seemed they have this plot. We've done the research. They have this outline that they follow. When they take a formerly Republican state, they move key population groups into big, dense cities. The big, dense cities outvote the rural populations, and boom, it's a left-wing city. It has a lot to do with immigration.
And then they have clashes with the rural areas, usually staged, to then demonize the people they're taking over.
Exactly. And now we're seeing what's happened. So Virginia has just barely been Democrat. It wasn't that long ago it was considered a battleground state. It might be a battleground state again, thanks to what they're doing.
And we know why it's happening. It's election fraud. So let's be clear. The UN is officially hiring for gun confiscation. We're going to go over those documents when we come back. But first, Tom, you have been involved in some violence yourself, and we have footage of this, and I want to decry this right now as we go to break. You actually were in Charlottesville, and you did actually attack some of the peaceful Antifa. And we're going to go ahead and just the interest of fairness and show what you did. Here it is. You've got better makeup on now, though. Tom Pappertine. Pappertine. I am now dubbing
What can I
you
say?
Darth Pappertine.
I don't actually have lights. Darth Pappertine.
Do you like being known as Darth Pappertine now?
I think it's a good nickname. These aren't actually lights behind me. It's all the Force, by the way.
That's right. We'll be right back with Lord Pappertine. Tom Emperor Pappertine is our guest. Seriously. I'm very excited that the dominoes are falling against the globalist. America and the world's waking up. I've been talking to a lot of people from the UK and Europe, and they say everybody's awake to the New World Order now. Now, election fraud's massive. The third world invasion operation's dangerous, and they're taking a lot of cities over and turning them blue, and then with election fraud, they never go back. So things are bad, but intellectually, spiritually, culturally, people are really waking up right now to this takeover and rejecting it. Now, Mike Adams has written a new big story that boils all this down. We just posted it to Infowars.com. UN hiring disarmament officers to conduct field missions. These are quotes in New York as UN occupation plan for America goes live. Now, he boils it all down. Loretta Lynch calling for it 5 years ago. All of this. This is the globalist counter. No borders, no walls, no USA at all. Their Russiagate failed. Their Ukraine-gate thing has failed so far, but they've got impeachment now just waiting. I warned Trump to get it done quickly. See, I knew. The Democrats are holding it because they're going to build up, I said, a racial clash in America to use that with the background of the impeachment ongoing to say, oh, we have new articles, drive him out. And you see it all coming into focus right now. Why the impeachment's passed but waiting. She says they may wait months, have more they pass, then during a national crisis, move it forward. Using atrocities of staged events, black on white, white on black events that the media is trying to hype. That's why they're saying whites are inherently bad all over the news. That's why all this is being pushed. Tom Pappert of nationalfile.com, people are really getting this. And they're really getting when the governor says, yeah, we may use the military to take the guns. And yeah, we're going to have checkpoints. And yeah, we're going to register you. They're wanting to push it. That's why O'Rourke was saying, hell yeah, we're going to take all your guns. They now realize they're politically going to lose and are now moving towards, I believe, the Civil War model. We've known that's been a plan for a while, but it looks like that's one of their only hopes right now. What do you think?
I think you're exactly right, Alex. I mean, even look at Virginia, where, as you said, through a combination of election fraud and mass immigration, as well as Democrats fleeing their terrible states and going to one to ruin it, we are seeing Virginia now competitive polling for President Trump. In fact, he's beating every single Democrat. The only one who comes close is Joe Biden in Virginia. That article's on nationalfile.com. So this is all slipping out of their hands. You're absolutely correct. People are waking up all around the globe. We have correspondents in South America, in the UK, all across the planet, and everywhere you look, there is a massive populist uprising. So what do? They fight back tooth and nail, just as you said. They're staging, obviously, some type of conflict in this country. It seems to be inevitable at this point to some. And it's like you said, Alex, it's going to happen in Virginia. You have over 100 different counties now saying they will refuse to confiscate guns. You have Virginia Governor Blackface Baby Killer Northam going in and saying that if you do not take the guns, we're going to take your pensions away and you're going to be fired. They're clearly gearing up. And then meanwhile, not that far away, especially when you've got a UN helicopter, they're hiring people for the express purpose of disarmament and reintegration of civilians. So they go in and they take your guns from a deep red state turned blue like Virginia. They put you in a camp for who knows how long while they reprogram you and teach you how to be a good little civilian. I mean, it reeks of desperation, Alex. It reeks of ignorance that all of this is on the UN website. You and I mean, that's how we found it. It was sent to us as a tip. We looked it up. We verified it. We found what the agencies do, and we wrote it. But at the same time, they would not be doing this if it wasn't for the situation becoming dire from the globalist perspective.
And I want to be clear. When you read FM 3-39.40, it dovetails perfectly. This is official UN Army policy under Obama that was leaked to us by the Army, by the way. I'll just tell you that. They said at the time, go ahead and tell folks where it came from. It came out of Fort Hood. They want everybody to know. And now it's being done again. People say, well, Trump's the president. They've still got most of the bureaucracy. And so this is their counterstrike, teaming up with the Chi-Coms, teaming up with The UN. What did Larry Grathwohl learn from the weatherman? The same plan. What does the Washington Post say? We need Xi to destroy Donald Trump. What did Reuters say? At Davos, Xi Jinping said, we will destroy Trump. We will destroy America. This is their plan. It doesn't mean they'll get away with it, but everyone should turn against the Democrats and the deep state, allied with the Chi-Coms and other evil groups. This is outrageous. And it's not even for the average person's interest to join against America and their Bill of Rights and constitutions. You talk about useful idiots. This is a next level useful idiot. That's what Lenin called idiots that supported communism, even though it destroyed them.
Well, that's precisely what these people are, and that's what the Democrat Party loves. They love these people who are just rabidly anti-Trump. They are filled with hate. They have no logic. They have no type of brain activity left whatsoever. They're only filled with hate. But Alex, I want to hone in on something because we have gotten some criticism saying, well, Trump wouldn't allow this. He's the president. He's a good president. And I agree. President Trump probably, I mean, this is being hidden from him. You said just earlier in this
show, Trump does not run the United Nations. Go ahead, sorry.
Right. Well, and it's happening under his nose in his home state of New York, no less. But you're right. He doesn't own the United Nations. He doesn't run the United Nations. And I'm sure that if he has it within his power, he will do something to stop this from happening, to stop the conflict the Democrats and the globalists so clearly want to create.
Tom, you just hit the nail on the head, though.
Without us.
This is a process of brainwashing. Loretta Lynch calls for the UN to take over police departments across the country if they have one bad shooting or one question thing. That was official. There's video over saying it. Anybody can pull up the article. Strong Cities Initiative. Breitbart wrote about it. We did. Now you have them all doing it again. But then it's so outrageous, people go, well, there's no way that can be true, but then they're actually trying it. So that's the thing about this. Yes, it's hard to believe that over 10,000 children as young as 5 years old in the U.S. have had their genitals already cut off. It's been done. It's accelerating. All this is crazy. I agree. It's hard to believe it's happening, but it is.
That's incredibly accurate. I mean, what's happening it seems to be accelerating at levels that nobody could have predicted. I mean, you sit there and you think, how did drag queen story hours become the new mission of the LGBTQ movement? You know, don't kill gays. Totally with you on that. Maybe let them get married. Not so sure. Maybe a legal marriage, maybe not a Christian marriage. But now it's let a 4-year-old child sit on a sexual predator's lap and dance. That's where we're at this point. And it is hard for folks to understand this. I can certainly agree. But Alex, I'm sitting here in the Midwest. I know you're down in Texas where it's getting a little bit worse. But when you go to the coast, when you get out of what is really the grassroots of America and you see how evil these places are, you land in a place like L.A. or in Washington, D.C.
Oh, it's like zombie, and the
attitude
and the vibe is horrible.
That's exactly right. And it's not hard to see these people thinking that they're going to get away with it. They are so mired in their tiny little bubble that they see an article like this, a UN office putting out a job application for who knows how many employees with government, with paramilitary. These are former Blackwater people that they're trying to hire. To them, it's just another day at the office. To us out here in real America, it's shocking, it's devastating, it's unbelievable. But it's really a tale of two Americas, Alex.
And people ask, why would they try that here? Because it's worked everywhere else. Tom, I want to do 5 more minutes with you. Then we have a guest joining us, Leo Zagami, with big news as well. And then another guest who's a South African marching across the U.S. to bring attention to the extermination of whites going on in South Africa and the government openly helping carry it out. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the New World Order. We're all exposing this and fighting against any racial group attacking and killing another group for what color they are. We stand against it, whether it's the Nazis that are mainly run by the Southern Poverty Law Center and ADL, literally, or whether it's the black groups funded by the communists killing whites all over Africa. We're going to come back and break all this down. Please don't forget, the only way we can stand in the face of the demonization and the attacks and the kangaroo courts and all of it and continue to fight the globalists with what you see on the surface and a lot of stuff behind the scenes that we don't take credit for a lot of reasons. InfoWars is bigger and more powerful than folks even know. And I'm just going to leave it at that your money's being well spent. I need a lot of it, okay? And I don't have enough to do a lot of stuff I want to do. I need you to go to InfoWarsStore.com, get the best deals we've ever had. It's only extended for like 4 more days. The year-end specials, up to 70% off, 75% off. Store-wide free shipping, double Patriot points, up to 50% off on the apparel. You can call toll-free 888-253-3139 and order via the phone, 888-253-3139. There's a P.O. box and address right there on the shopping cart as well, but that's how we fund ourselves. And we are doing incredible work, and we are fighting harder than we've ever fought. You've seen what our reporters are doing. You've seen what our crews are doing. You see the other great reporters we have on helping magnify the great work they're doing at National File, and now that's on Drudge. We're doing this together, but it takes money to do it, and we can get so much more done if you just finance our operations. So take action in the war now. Sign up for auto ship, additional 10% off, and get your coffee, get your toothpaste, get your fish oil, get it all. InfoWarsStore.com. It's 2020. It's time for action. Monday through Friday, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., the vaunted, hated, dreaded InfoWars is live. Wild horses couldn't drag me away. Big movements inside the Vatican. As the Pope says there is no hell, open the borders, slapping a woman in public. A lot of big developments with the globalist Pope. We'll be talking to Leo Zagami coming up. Tom Pappert, Mike Adams' excellent naturalnews.com article is on newswars.com, and it boils down what you broke and others, but he adds the UN officially calling for the occupation of the U.S., the left calling for them to take the guns, examples of the State Department wanting that, how this is what the UN does around the world. Very important big article. UN hiring disarmament officers to conduct field missions in New York as UN occupation plan for America goes live. They have a UN-affiliated funded group microchipping homeless in Florida and Texas. That's all confirmed. So the UN's like a bureaucracy, social justice warrior, community organizer, Barack Obama type stuff. That's how it just oozes in. They call it munionalization. How they take over your local cities if they can't get your central government. Schwarzenegger, when they couldn't get the carbon taxes through when Trump got elected, said, we need to munionize and work directly with the cities. We need to bypass Congress and the president. This is a takeover. People say, oh, it's ridiculous, but it's not military at first. But the fact that now they're, just last month in Idaho, there's video. And in Salt Lake City, all of a sudden, they've taken over a building and the UN's armed. They say, this is now UN territory. Get back to the press. This is really going on, Tom.
Well, that's exactly what's going on. I mean, we all saw that video. It was shocking at the time, and now it seems humdrum. That's how fast things move. But it was literally a hotel or a convention center in Salt Lake City where they take it over and they say, no, this is the UN now. Out there, that's the United States. This is the UN. We control this. Well, that's what happens in New York. That's what happens when they hire these people. And you're right, Alex. We should have gone further into detail in our article. We just wanted to get the news out as fast as possible. But this has been a long time coming.
You broke that like 4 or 5 days ago, and now it's a top story out there. Great job. No, you got to initialize it to make sure it happens, then everybody else gets it.
Right. Well, that's exactly how this whole process works. And this it has been a process since the early days of the Obama administration. This has all been building. And only now that they have what they consider to be a hostile person to their ideology in the White House, are they bringing it to fruition. They know exactly what they're doing. This has all been stored in the tank, waiting and ready to go for years.
And they do this to other countries all the time. So this is a real plan. Right. Doesn't mean it's going to succeed, but it's like that Antifa full-page article in the New York Times, overthrow Pence, Trump, drive them from power. They're going to try that this year. We're now in 2020.
That's right. Now, Alex, I just want to say, after a long 2019, I want to congratulate you. Another article we have up is, of course, you were the biggest podcast of 2019. And if you do the number crunching, the most listened to podcast of all time, which is really just a symbol of how many people in this country and everywhere throughout the globe are waking up past the globalist indoctrination and wanting to hear the truth. So congratulations, my friend. That is truly impressive.
That's the listeners and people that are interested in the truth. And I'm telling you, the dominoes are falling towards the tyrants. They are in big trouble, but they're going to strike back. So do what must be done, Lord Pappert. Show no mercy. The globalists are relentless. Trump needs to take action, and he's starting to fire all these Soros people right now. So it's finally happening.
That's exactly what's happening, and it's very encouraging to see. I know you and I have both been frustrated with the president on some issues. He's doing a lot. He's doing as much as he can, and it looks like now, finally, if the leaks stop, if we can stop finding out everything that's happening in the White House 2 days earlier than we should because of these Obama holdovers, we'll know that he was successful.
Darth Palpatine. Lord Palpatine. There you go, nationalfile.com, folks. Be sure and check it out daily. Tom, you're awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. It's always a pleasure.
We've got the jump on them trying to start martial law up. You dirty, filthy Soros commies. We know everything you're up to, filth. I wanted to get Leo Zagami on one of the first new shows of 2020. Best-selling author, talk show host in his own right. Just to talk about the pedophile rings that are being exposed that have seized control of the Vatican. What's happening with this Jesuit Pope that he first exposed 6, 7 years ago and said would be the Pope. He said they would have it where popes don't die anymore. They just leave office. You can even have multiple popes at the same time. First time I ever heard this, he's totally on target. He's had to leave Italy because he's been a political prisoner over there. We're going to talk to him about the Pope saying there is no hell. The Pope saying open your borders to Islam. But don't open the Vatican up, though. You talk about demonic, folks. This is just getting out of control. I mean, he just recently said it again. So how is that affecting the Catholic Church? This is a big deal. But before we go any further, please don't forget, this broadcast is listener-supported. We have a lot of really important initiatives that we want to be able to carry out, a lot of different operations in 2020. 2020's here, 305 days left of the election. We need capital. Plus, these are great products you need. Everybody asks, Alex, why don't you ever get sick? I mean, I get sore throats and stuff from allergies. That's about it. I haven't been sick in 4, 5, 6 years. I can't remember the last time I had a fever. The flu season's record levels. Knock on wood. Hope it doesn't happen to me. But, I mean, I eat high-quality supplements. I eat a lot of garlic. And I just, knock on wood, I just don't get sick like that. And I've always had a good constitution. But I'd still get a fever every couple of years. Man, it's 4 or 5. I can't remember the last time I had a fever. Can't remember the last time I was puking my guts out with any type of stomach bug. And most of the people I know have. I mean, and the more they vaccinate people, the more people get the flu. That's been documented. So now is the time to fortify your body. And if you don't have the X2 and the X3, if you don't have the DNA Force, if you don't take a good probiotic like our Flora Life and our Myco ZX, you don't have those front lines of defense in your body. And I can just tell you, I work hard. Everybody knows for a long time, I stopped working out and did nothing for 15 years. In the last 10 years, I've been slowly getting back in shape. But, I mean, I've got more stamina, more libido, more energy. And in the new year, I'm just committing to myself that I'm going to take the supplements that help flush my body out, InfoWarsLife.com. I'm going to take the supplements that help me have more energy and stamina, like Turbo Force and Brain Force. And the more I remember to take the fish oil, the krill, the more I remember to take Knockout at night, I have better sleep. These are all compounds and things that aren't in the soil anymore, that aren't in most of the plants and food anymore. And when you get these things, they just supercharge you, and it funds this operation, so it's a total 360 win. So double Patriot points, store-wide free shipping, 50% off on the apparel. All of it has to end in 4 days. We'll have some new specials, but not as massive as this. So please take advantage of it while those sales are still going. Now, going to Leo Zagami of leozagami.com. Leo, I appreciate you popping in on short notice. I just wanted to get your waterfront snapshot into 2020, what you expect to be coming, what you expect to be going on. Huge awakenings we're seeing in Europe against globalism. The same thing here, but they're going to try to counterstrike. What's front and center on your radar?
Well, thank you for having me on, and Happy New Year to everybody. I think that, of course, we are seeing in Europe a complete change towards populism, but at the same time, we have this resistance from the technocrats who are, of course, playing dirty, and they are not accepting the democratic vote. We have seen it recently in Italy, where in September, they overthrew the populist government and substituted with the usual friends of Hillary Clinton. And so we have a lot of similarities with what is going on here in the United States. There is some kind of thread between what is happening in Europe and what is happening in the United States, but also what is happening in the church, because the Catholic Church is becoming increasingly a political vessel, and the Pope is becoming also known as a political figure. So this is what we're going to see in 2020, more of the Pope getting involved in politics, more of this sabotage of populist and sovereignty parties that want to go back to tradition and to conservative values. We have also seen that Matteo Salvini has immediately criticized the Pope for his move just in New Year's Eve, which has shown the world once again the hypocrisy of this figure, because after making an homily on helping others, on being understanding and all that, he simply treated one of the faithful in St. Peter's Square like dirt, showing to the world his real face, which is, of course, the face of evil. Regarding here, the United States, we have some change in the local laws in the state of California that will bring, they're already piling up a bunch of cases of lawsuits when it comes to sex abuse against the Catholic Church. And we have even the advisor to Mother Teresa that is now being accused of raping the same boy for 1,000 times. 1,000 times. Robert J. Gober filed a suit now in the state court in California on Monday because of these new laws. So McGuire, he's the Jesuit priest who died, unfortunately, in 2017, will not be punishable personally, but of course, there will be money that the Catholic Church will have to give for these cases, and that will also bring another big problem in the fold. But for 2020, I see definitely a year that is a turning point. We can either go the direction of freedom, of an American Renaissance, which we have talked about in the past with you, Alex, when I was in Austin, or otherwise we can go towards instead a very the wrong direction, the direction of civil war, of civil unrest, and that, of course, is something that we hope will not happen. So our prayers are for the President of the United States in this very delicate moment in history.
The fate of the globalists really is burning to the ground, and even the top trends out of major publications say that 2020 is the year globalism becomes super unpopular and falls apart. But out of that comes the Chi-Coms, the city-states, and the economic warfare. I mean, these people are not defeated yet when they say globalism is falling apart. How would you describe the real climate geopolitically right now?
Well, the geopolitical climate is actually reflecting more and more the religious climate, this never-ending war against Christians, which is getting harsher even in China, where we see rules and new laws against Christians all the time, aside from the Catholic Church, who has now made a deal with communist China. But this is a spiritual war, Alex. And then, of course, from this spiritual war emanates a political confrontation with the progressive liberal forces, which are, of course, endorsing pure evil, because that's what they're doing. And I think it's pretty clear now, even for everybody who's watching us, that the lies of the mainstream media are really not enough to
I agree with you. So let me ask you that. Why are they coming out in the open saying, okay, we are Satanist, okay, we do abuse children, and we're going to get you, and we are liars? I mean, why are they trying to scare us, make us give up, normalize it? What are they doing?
Yeah, because we have announced a couple of years ago that Trump was really on the case with fighting pedophilia, and he has demonstrated that the war, there is an ongoing war with pedophilia, not only in the Catholic Church, but in many other institutions. And everywhere, really, in politics, everywhere. And so this war is annoying the enemy, which now wants to normalize their perversion. The more they get exposed and the more they arrest them, then in the end, they want to normalize this whole thing, because it's a little bit like the prohibition on drugs for them. But it's a very different issue, because, I mean, you are talking about the abuse of children, and they want to normalize it through constant reiteration on Hollywood media, and they are making...
That's right. They know it's all coming out, so they're desperately trying to desensitize us, hoping that somehow they don't get in trouble when it all comes out.
Well, of course, the New York Times and the mainstream media is just saying, oh, it's another sickness, it's another disease. We have to treat it like that. Oh, poor guy. Well, he shouldn't have... in the end, we have had, at the end of the December, coming out an incredible news. Here there is a guy who was abused, a 19-year-old boy in France who shoveled a crucifix down the throat of a priest.
Let's talk about that in the latest Jeffrey Epstein news. where even mainstream news is admitting she's an Israeli operative. Stay with us. We'll be back. Paul Watson's going to host the 4th hour. But in the last segment of this hour, I'm going to hit Ebola news that is so staggering, so incredible, that I can't believe it's actually happening. And, of course, you're going to hear it here first. It's the full assault on the Western world with disease, with unwashed masses, with all of it to bring us down, to collapse things. And Trump is battling to keep it propped up. It doesn't mean it's good how he's doing it with the fiat money, but we're damned if we do. We're really damned if we don't. And I don't know how Trump's going to navigate us out of this. I know he's trying. I know I'm trying. I know we've all just got to be active and spread the word, because we could lose everything financially. What matters is ideology. If we have Americana, if we have Renaissance, we can rebuild the country easily. It's the psychic attack, the spiritual attack that really matters. I want to get into the record numbers. I mean, it's over a tenfold increase, they admit, of pedophiles, people with kidnapped children being busted. It's happening all over the world. And now you have Maxwell, the girlfriend of Epstein, who was this big handler. Even the Daily Mail has the headline that she's an Israeli intelligence op in Israel. So that's a big deal that this is coming out. These groups all blackmail each other. What faction's in control of the Vatican right now, Leo, from your research? And how does that tie into the other factions? Who are the factions? I know, you've been, and it's not a bad thing because you've been public about it, and you're a Christian, and you've, renounced some of it because you didn't know what you were getting into. You've been in, in what it really is Illuminati organizations in Rome. I mean, the real deal. So who are the power players? Because for me, all the groups just confuse it. There's some good, some bad in all the groups because a lot of them get deceived getting into them. It really matters is your personal relationship with Christ. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. And the groups are basically the Jesuits and the Sabbatean Frankists within the Jewish community, which are heretics, basically, but they're still ongoing and they have immense power. For them, 2020 is a very important year because it has a special symbology. You see 2020 in the Kabbalah and also in a vast number of symbolism that really puts together this year with a turning point for mankind. I mean, it's not a normal year. I just received a document from a Masonic Grandmaster a few days ago talking about the symbology of 2020, that it was connected with the apocalypse, with the end of times, And of course, this is a link which is unusual, especially for a Masonic Grandmaster. But it also...
Exactly. So the iconography, the numerology of 2020, describe that more. We should do a whole show on this. I mean, to mystery school religions, which goes back to Solomon's Temple, back to Egypt, back to Babylon. It's all the same groups, where it's Masonic, Jewish, as you said, Islamic, all at its roots as the secret society element. What do they think 2020 is in numerology?
Well, they think that it represents the duality of two opposing factions at work.
Janice.
And of course, we have seen also what is happening with the weather, with everything else. But all this is not connected to climate change, but rather to something very occult, which is ongoing. You see, Pythagoras...
Can you feel the spiritual energy increasing exponentially?
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm on fire right now. I'm on fire right now.
I mean, Alex, Pythagoras, who is saw as this immense figure, philosopher, Pythagoras said that numbers are so important to really understand where we are now. And we are in a year that symbolizes what Pythagoras called the tetractys, which is also connected to the holy name of God. So there is here both, if you go into the study of Kabbalah...
It's an infinity symbol, so it's a gate backwards and forwards. It's a snake eating itself. It's a portal.
It's a portal. It's a portal, and like we said at the beginning of the show, it can go either one direction or the other, because you see the number 20 can go especially at this moment of time, we see how it's reflecting, especially in politics, these cyclic events that take place. The 1920s were not really a great time for mankind, Alex. We saw the beginning of fascism in Italy. We saw Adolf Hitler putting the first, seeding basically what became after grown up to be Nazism a few years later. I mean, if history repeats itself, we are in front of a decade that will change the fate of mankind, and it's nothing is going to be ever like before. In 10 years from now, our children, our youth could lose control of their brain to artificial intelligence, and this
the great war for human destiny is here. We're at the center of a cross point, a jump point of opportunity. This is the crossroads. We are now entering the planetary alignment.
We are entering a planetary alignment, and there is what in Judaism is called the Rodesh, which is the divine name of it. And so we are in front of a positive thing, because we know, like the Christians know, that in the end of the day, we're going to have some kind of revelation that will bring together for those who, of course, will survive the next 10 years.
Exactly. So how do you then focus on the good that's happening instead of all the bad that's about to come out? Because it's good that bad's coming out, so it stops or it gets cut back. But we don't want to worship that by focusing on it too much. I feel like we need to focus on the good that's also happening.
Yes, and I think that the symbology of 2020 will increase the psychic energy, so we can use our own psychic energy with our own prayers towards a positive outcome, and we are all working for that. And there is people who are waking up, even in places like Hollywood or inside the Vatican. I think that in the coming year is possible, well, in this year that has just started, we could see a schism within the Catholic Church, because there is more and more rumors that the U.S. Catholic Church wants to break up with Rome.
Let's come back and briefly talk about that, because as you said, it's the year of revelation, it's the year of awakening, it's the year of cataclysms, schisms. This is going to be an explosive year, and you did what I do too. You're like, in the coming year. No, it's here. We're now 2 days in, so we're 333 days right now. No, 363 days right now. What an amazing time. 305 days out from the election. We've got 1 minute to break, but tell folks briefly about your latest book.
My latest book is about the times we are living. So it's about what we are talking about today and everything that has been going on behind the scenes. The connections between the Sabbatean Frankists and the Jesuits are unveiled for the first time. So we don't, because it's important here that we don't stigmatize Jews. There is so much anti-Semitism going on. We need to have clarity. We need to understand that even the Jewish world, like the Christian world, suffered heresies like the one that is being carried on by the Jesuits within the Catholic
Church. Just because there's mafias in charge of all the major groups doesn't mean the groups are bad.
Absolutely. And Maxwell and Epstein were Sabbatean Frankists.
That's right. Part of that cult under her father's control. We'll be right back on the other side to finish up. Stay with us. All right. Leo Zagami is going to be in studio with us soon. He might even fly out here with Roseanne Barr. She's been wanting to get on the show and have me on her show forever, but it just never happens. And again, it's not bragging. It's pointing out that liberty's popular. Joe Rogan's #1 podcast ever is my interview last year. His third largest is my interview the year before. And I talk to Joe sometimes, and he's like, oh, yeah, we'll see about it sometime. I'm just like, whatever, man. It's like you win the Indy 500. And they go, you can't be on the racetrack again. You're just not allowed to. And they're only showing one feed of the show. If you add up all the videos on his channel the last time I was on YouTube, it's like 35 million views. You count the other platforms, it's like 60 million views of a long-form podcast. And there's news articles about it. But I was the most popular, also voted the most popular, but also voted the most disliked by liberals. So, I mean, I have the best positive numbers, best negative numbers, which, again, shows freedom is popular. And so thanks for keeping me in the game, listeners. That's why we have InfoWars and Band.video. The Sentinel, the place they're not supposed to get it. Spread the word. That's how we cause this exponential operation that the globalists can't stand. Hey, here's the forbidden info. Hear what you're not supposed to hear. Leo, getting back to this new year we're now into, just in closing. Obviously, they're trying to foment civil war. Obviously, they're trying to foment racial strife. They admit they're doing that. They're trying to start gun confiscation in Democrat-controlled states. We're going to have people covering this month in Virginia. How else do you think they're going to go after Trump? They're keeping the impeachment open. How outrageous is that? Holding on to the indictments, saying they're going to have more. I mean, this is crazy.
It's crazy, and it's going to manifest faster than you can imagine, because this Armageddon is going to finally manifest on mankind one way or another. I mean, we are definitely in a turning point for humanity, and the impeachment farce can either be dismissed or either could bring to a civil war. So we pray, I repeat, we pray that it doesn't go that way. I hope that these stupid Democrats realize that following Jesuit orders and attacking and continuing to attack Trump all the time is not the right thing to do. But as I said, this is 2020, and it's typical of these two numbers coming together, the confrontation between good and evil. And we're going to see many other things happening, because the Antichrist will manifest also showing some wonders. And I can tell you that Netflix is the propaganda of the beast. We have seen it with Gay Jesus. That was their first, the last thing in 2019. And now they have for 2020 a new series called Messiah, in which they are unveiling some kind of Messiah that will manifest in the Middle East. So they are really fomenting the young people towards a direction that we definitely think is demonic.
That's right. Everything they do is, oh, the Mahdi's coming to lead the Islam to crush the West. Christianity is under attack. I mean, this is really a sabotage of humanity, is what the Bible tells us Satan does.
It's, I mean, we shouldn't be surprised about it. I mean, Obama joined the Netflix team, so it's all part of a propaganda game that, of course, is manifesting in front of our eyes every day. We shouldn't be surprised. But when we see that the Pope is actually truly evil and is manifesting it in front of our eyes, and then we see Madonna that this year finally leaves the United States and goes to Portugal because you know, she is continuously attacking Trump, and she hates and she wants to confiscate all our guns. We see that these people in Hollywood are losing touch with reality, and so maybe in 2020 the new trend will be to instead embrace Alex Jones, InfoWars, what we are doing at DelioZagami.com, and embracing a reality, which is a reality that, of course, is of embracing with all our heart Jesus. That's the most important thing in this moment of history.
That's right. And the globalists are trying to run different groups and play us off against each other. It's just all good versus evil, and we need to judge people individually, not off what group they are. But the left is all pushing that in the name of openness. They're saying it's only about what group you're in, not who you are. Extremely dangerous. All right, Leo Zagami, leozagami.com. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Alex.
Here we are together in 2020. Can you believe it? Someday in 2020. And, of course, a fabled year of incredible change. And it's happening. Everything's crazy in 2020. And we're still here on air. We weren't supposed to be here. The globalists were supposed to have us off the air, but thanks to you and this great crew, your prayers, we're still on air. Now, Jason Bartlett is a founder of Boer Extinction. He stands for Jesus Christ and only him. And he's walking, just started it yesterday, from Austin, Texas to D.C. to bring an end to farm murders in South Africa. Now, I can play you the deputy president, the defense minister, all the clips. It's very sad, saying we're going to kill all the white farmers. It's exploded, just like happened in Rhodesia and Zimbabwe and all those other countries whose names are always changing. And it's just out of control. This is the communism, and the left is supporting this. Very, very sad. But it's all part of the New York Times saying whites are inherently bad, need to be gotten rid of. It's not okay to be white. This is what the left is doing, and they're divide and conquer. So Jason Bartlett joins us to talk about what it's really like in South Africa. And now the government's seeking to take the final guns out of white folks' hands. And then like the other African countries, as soon as the farmers are gone, everything falls apart and people start starving to death. And we know that's already starting to happen. So Jason Bartlett, thank you for joining us, and tell us why you're doing this and what your mission is.
Hi, Alex, man. It's great to meet you. And yes, man, my mission is, it's already on foot. I've actually stopped here at a beautiful little church in Texas that gave me a Wi-Fi password because AT&T doesn't work out here. But, you know, I'm walking from Austin, Texas to the White House for the persecution of Christian farmers in South Africa. They've been brutally tortured and murdered. And the leftists are working with people like Antifa, and they're attacking me now. They're coming after me. And it's just incredible how our enemies are exactly the same, because they stand for the same thing. They want to divide us. They want to dehumanize us. And I mean, unfortunately, my cousin was even shot in the back of the head. People get raped. People get tortured. They cut their eyes out. They cut their genitals off. It's just horrific what they're doing over there. And they do it on a daily basis, Alex.
And this has been going on for a long time, but now it's the government ministers officially saying it. It's massive. And now the news is defending. So a few years ago, they said white genocide wasn't happening. Christian genocide wasn't happening. And because the communists are also getting black tribes that aren't Christian to kill blacks that are Christian. This is really a targeting of Christians, isn't it?
It is. It's a direct targeting of Christians. And yes, we happen to be white. And sure, they do kill their own black people. And I feel sorry for them too. But I'm standing up for our people because the government is standing up and singing. You can look at it all over. They sing one settler, one bullet, go kill the farmer. And they sing this countless times. And they just stand up there and they say, slit the throat of whiteness. And nobody condones it and nobody says anything. And they're hiding it because there's a genocide. There's even people called like busting the myth of white genocide, working with Antifa, and they just attacking me like crazy. So Americans really need to open their eyes and care about South Africa, because South Africa is setting the framework for America. And that's why we want preferential asylum cases to be approved, as well as lenient visas to be approved, because we're law-abiding citizens and we want to come and help feed this great nation and keep it great.
Well, that's another point. Whites are being run out of South Africa. The left says, don't let you out, let you die there. Don't have any white immigration to the West. But Russia is taking the South Africans that are literally hanging on helicopter skids as they escape. We've had some who are staying and fighting to the death. It's just unbelievable. Let's come back with Jason Bartlett and talk about how he got to the U.S., why he's walking around the United States to try to expose this. BoerExtinction.org. If I would have known he was doing this, I'd have got him in studio before he started his walk, but I'm glad we found out about it. I'm aware of what he's doing, BoerExtinction.org. He'll be on Twitter until they ban him. Buffalo Bartlett on Twitter for now, just calling for South African white farmers to not be targeted for being white and exterminated. Something, obviously, that Netflix and Obama absolutely love. Bad to the bone. Bad to the bone. It's an Obama. Let me tell you something, what's bad to the bone. You've heard callers call in, and former military, special operations folks saying, man, I don't know how you know your intel or how you get stuff so accurate. Well, I've been getting some calls today and some text messages from multiple people telling me the same thing. And they say the contractors, the Marines, the Army, they're all going in heavy into Iraq. Iran is, I mean, the safety's off, the gun's cocked to Iran's head right now after what just got pulled at the embassy. And we'll be here covering it, but it's all a huge time bomb. You know, Trump says he wants peace. I understand that. I don't want war. A lot of sophisticated things going on there as well. Paul Watson's hosting the 4th hour. I want to get us some really big Ebola news here in a few minutes, but going back to Jason Bartlett, who I want to get updates from as he travels across the country.